That's why you never see the product suffer, because I am the product. That's why he never is nowhere re-upping, because he is re-upped.
Yeah, okay. I owe you a dinner, man. I owe you a dinner. I obviously can't afford to get anything
tell you,
else.
like I told Puffy, I don't let men take me out, sir. I'm good.
I think it's more interesting that Steve Harvey's there.
Survey says the number one most interesting thing about this photo is
Diddy and his son are
So it looks like Katt Williams is more determined than ever to keep his foot on his op's neck, because he is coming out to spill some more tea on the freak-offs that have been happening in the industry for the longest time. But it's not just that, because he is specifically coming out to spill some tea and threatened to release some alleged freak-off videos between Steve Harvey and Diddy. To put things straight, Katt is allegedly claiming that Diddy and Steve used to have a little something going on, and he is claiming to have the receipts to back things up. Okay, I'll better get on this, because the situation just went from bad to worse.
Before I get started, just let me say, I'm fine. Marjorie's fine. I don't know what y'all doing. But find something else to do. We fine. Okay.
Y'all might need to sit down for this, because there is some insanity going on in Hollywood that needs to be addressed ASAP. Now, we've always known that celebs be wilding a lot in Hollywood, but in the past couple of months alone, we've gotten a peek at some of the craziest and wildest things that celebs have been involved in for years. Girl, it's a whole new world out there in Hollywood. But some people in the know are still insisting that it's still worse than we know, and that paints a very clear image of what Hollywood is really like now. Most celebs usually try to cover up for each other. You know, always say nice things about each other, blah, 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 blah. But then there are some people who have made themselves champions of the truth and have made it their business to expose some really shady things that go on behind closed doors, and Katt Williams is one of them. Katt has been open about this part of the industry, but he only used to talk about it in general, you know, talking about the Illuminati and how his career has been held back because he has refused to stop exposing the Illuminati. But he recently switched things up and started spilling some tea on some really specific people in the industry. I don't know what changed, but something serious had to have gone down over the holidays, because Katt has been out here spilling the craziest tea on celebs and slamming them for being hypocrites. It all started from his Club Shay podcast interview, where he called out so many celebs saying stuff like, "Ha! Al Kevin Jart was an industry plant, Steve Harvey stealing his jokes, and even Diddy offering him $50 million for a one-night stand." It was really messy, but what we didn't know at the time was that it was the tip of the iceberg, because Katt still had a lot of tea to spill on celebs' club Shay interview got a lot of people talking, and it even got a lot of celebs reacting to it and dragging him for filth. Kevin Hart called him a clown, Cedric the Entertainer called him a troublemaker, and Tiffany Haddish called him a drug addict. But I find it interesting that not one person boldly came out to call him a liar. This is probably because everyone knows that Katt doesn't make up stories, and he always has the receipts to back up his claims, so nobody wanted to be out here testing Katt and having him drop receipts on their tea. But as it turns out, Katt didn't even need to be pushed, because he was already willing to spill the tea anyways. Things popped off immediately after the interview on Club Shay. Shay aired, and since then, it's like he just can't stop spilling tea on your fave. He has had a lot to say, but one that recently people in a chokehold is the tea that he spilled on Steve Harvey, Marjorie Harvey, and Diddy, because he hinted that Steve and Marjorie have allegedly been swinging with Diddy. Now, I have no way of verifying this information, cuz I'm just letting y'all know what the grapevine is saying, so you better do more digging, cuz the drama in this situation is next level insane. But if you stop to think about this, it kind of lines up with the allegations that have been going on about Diddy and the Harveys for a hot minute now. You know about how the Harveys allegedly pimped Lori out to Diddy because they wanted that major Hollywood connection, and what better way to get that connection than through one of the biggest movers and shakers of the industry? If you're wondering why Katt is spilling this story on Steve, well, it shouldn't be so surprising if you know about the history between these two. Steve calls it a rivalry, but according to Katt, it's nowhere close to being a rivalry, because Steve is nowhere close to being on his level. In case you haven't figured it out by this time, let me break it down for you. These two do not like each other at all on any level, and they can't barely stand each other, Steve thinks that Katt is a hypocrite who has built his entire IR career on trash, talking his fellow celebrities, and Katt thinks that Steve is unethical and sold his soul for fame. And he is being controlled by the elites. And if you haven't been paying attention to the beef between these two, Katt has been calling Steve out for years for stealing his jokes and trying to pass them off as his own. He even said the same thing on the Club Shay podcast when he revealed that has been stealing his jokes for years. He even went as far as to claim that Steve used to attend his shows just so he could steal Katt's jokes and then pass it off as his once he felt like enough time had passed that people wouldn't remember.
The same Steve that went to go watch Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry had. Now Steve got a sitcom where he the principal and he wear a suit and then he gets this high top fade, making all black men think he got the best lineup in the business, and it's a man unit. Then you ask it, why you not a movie star? I didn't want to be a movie star. This the same Negro that hated on Bernie with this same thing. I didn't want to be a movie star. No, you couldn't be a movie star. There are 30,000 new scripts in Hollywood every year. Not one of them asks for a country bumpkin black dude that can't talk good, baby, and look like Mr. Potato Head. There ain't none.
But that's not the only thing that Katt had accused Steve of stealing, because he also accused Steve of straight up lying to his fans for years and grossly overt telling the story of how broke he used to be. Steve has always told his grass to grace story of how he used to be broke and homeless. He claimed that he used to live in his car in a parking lot because he couldn't afford to pay rent.
I used to spend the night in hotel parking lots. What was I gonna do? I ain't had nowhere to stay, so I lived in the car. I had $35. And I said, come on, God, man, I've been trying to make this dream come true. You done left me out here like this.
This has been one of the biggest stories of Steve's career because it's like a grass to grace story for him, and it has had people feeling inspired by him. But Katt came out to blast Steve, accusing him of lying because there was no time in Steve's life when he was broke enough to live in his car. But that's not the worst, because Katt also claimed that that was his story and not
Like Steve Harvey telling people he used to be homeless. That's my story. That's not his story. Steve Harvey wasn't never homeless. When Mark Curry was touring with him 25 years ago, he was making $3,000 a show in cash and doing 5 shows a week. They just tell the stories. Thanks to my wife, I'm where I am. You said that about the first wife. You forget that? You told us it was her. Then you went and married somebody else that think like a man. Like, what are you talking about? They think they can rewrite history.
So, according to Katt, Steve was not only stealing his jokes, but also stealing his life story as well. And I get why that would make him mad. So, yeah, these two men are like oil and water. They do not get along at all. Who the real drama started when Katt started hinting that Steve had something to do with Lori being in so many high-profile relationships, and he hinted that Steve might have allegedly been pimping her out to so many relationships. Many people have always felt a type of way about Steve's favoritism of Lori, and even though we're not a part of their family, it's super clear that he likes her way better than his own kids. Even though she's not his biological child, don't get me wrong. I am not saying that he shouldn't love her because she's not his biological child, because it's a great thing that he's taken other kids and loving them like his. But the thing is, loving her is not the problem. The problem was that he loves her like she is his only child. I mean, he doesn't even love his other stepkids like that. At first, people thought that the reason he liked Lori so much was that she's a really beautiful woman, and she was enjoying that pretty privilege from him. Well, according to Katt, we were kind of right about that, because he allegedly decided to weaponize that pretty privilege into something else. He allegedly pimped her out to men for fame and clout. Remember when Lori claimed that Steve used to take her on frequent father-daughter dates?